Now, there was something missing last night in last night's debate, and it was questions about climate change. Now, we don't talk a lot about climate change in the corporate media when it comes to the debates, when it comes to questions. So when we do actually mention things when it comes to the climate, when it's related to the climate, I should say, it usually comes out in some sort of pro-fossil fuel talking point. And one of those, of course, was said by Donald Trump. Now, I've got a clip here of Trump's response to a question about, hey, what can we do with energy? How do we solve our energy issues? And Trump had this to say.
More than wind and solar. And you look at our miners. Hillary Clinton wants to put all the miners out of business. There is a thing called clean coal. Coal will last for 1,000 years in this country. Now we have natural gas and so many other things because of technology. We have we have found over the last 7 years, we have found tremendous wealth right under our feet. So good, especially when you have 20 trillion in debt. I will bring our energy companies back. They'll be able to compete. They'll make money. They'll pay off our national debt. They'll pay off our tremendous budget deficits, which are tremendous. But we are putting our energy companies out of business.
Oh, boy. That had to have been probably one of the stupidest things I've heard in a debate. And the only mention, Ron, about clean energy that I've seen, it just happened to be clean coal, which doesn't actually fucking exist. It's not a thing. No. There's no such thing as clean coal. Okay, but
in all these initiatives, clean coal, fracking, I mean, those are all...
They're all terrible.
At best. Well, not only are they terrible for the environment, they're also Band-Aids on a broken arm. Yeah. And not just Band-Aids on a broken arm, but Band-Aids that aren't even staying on the broken arm that is the United States. I mean, most of the oil we're extracting through fracking, most of that is going to other countries. So really, it's just billionaires are padding their pockets. That's all that's going on.
Yeah, and this billionaire, this idiot, Donald Trump thinks, coal, it is so clean, so tremendous. Let's just invest in that. Screw solar, screw any of that stuff. No, clean coal. Let me give you an example of clean coal and how it's not fucking working. Now, Think Progress noted in one of its reports that a lot of the attempts to actually get clean coal technology have met with dismal failure. Now, you want to talk about Solyndra? This beats the shit out of Solyndra. Company in Mississippi has lost $6.6 billion trying to implement clean coal technology. Now, they're being sued by ratepayers. These are small businesses, right? They've described this plant as, quote, a boondoggle. Boondoggle. Spent $6.6 billion. And now they're also being investigated by the SEC. So, that's your clean coal. Solyndra was $500 million, right? And Republicans, conservatives love to harp on Solyndra. Oh my God, it's a failure of solar power. Most of the solar initiatives, about 90% of the solar initiatives that President Obama, put taxpayer money forward for was about $80 billion in solar initiatives. Most of them were successful. Solyndra is the rare unsuccessful one. Cost $500 million or lost $500 million. This has spent $6.6 billion and it's not even operational. You know what it's using right now? It's burning natural gas because it can't get the clean coal technology to actually work, to actually function. It's amazing. But even if it did work, by the way, this plant would still release carbon into the atmosphere. And not to mention, it would have the environmental impact of actually mining that coal to burn, which would, of course, involve mountaintop removal and everything else that goes into, actual coal mining. So, look, it's just clean coal it's a unicorn. It's a fucking myth. It's not going to work. But we actually have technologies that do work. And yet Donald Trump says, nope, absolutely not. We got tremendous energy under our feet. Let's burn all that carbon. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it was your cliche drill baby drill. And I mean, unfortunately, Clinton's not much better
Didn't say that.
And
I was
no,
just
I know
gonna
you
say.
didn't. I was just saying, like, unfortunately, she's not. I mean, when it comes to environmental issues, and I think that's part of the reason they haven't talked about it much, because I don't think either candidate, it's a very high priority, and I don't think either candidate is going to really say much other than the pro-business narrative.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's
No,
incredibly
it's
unfortunate.
incredibly unfortunate.
And so, look, later on, and speaking of pro-business, right? You notice how he said in that clip, I will bring the energy companies back, right? They will be able to compete and make money and pay off our national debt and budget deficits that are tremendous. Now we have natural gas and so many other things we have found in the last 7 years. We have found tremendous wealth under our feet. You know, the thing is, though, is that none of that wealth is actually going to go to us. It's not going to go to the national debt. No, it's going to go right into the pockets of the fossil fuel executives. That's what they do. What they do is that they essentially privatize the gains and socialize the losses. They keep all the money. We deal with all the environmental impacts. The impact of climate change, for example, that's a loss, right? We've got more extreme weather, right? It's not like we didn't have extreme weather. It's just has a possibility of being more extreme. Longer droughts, massive human migration. For example, you think the Syrian crisis, the migrant crisis, is bad? Just wait. When more of those places in the Middle East start seeing even higher temperatures and are unable to actually grow more food, it's beginning. There's been reports of places in Iraq reaching, 140 degrees Fahrenheit? Holy shit. You can't even be outside, much less anything else, much less grow food, right? What's going to happen when all that migration happens? It's going to come to our doorstep. It's going to come to Europe. There's going to be other massive migrations. And this is all stuff that's going to happen within the next, 50 years? 100 years? I mean, we've got a disaster in the making. And
Well, not only that, but I mean, Donald Trump, if you think the energy companies have gone anywhere, just turn on cable television news for 3 minutes, where every third commercial is an oil and gas company. Or you can drive through my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where Range Resources is everywhere, Consul is everywhere. There's even a billboard when you enter the city from Range Resources advising people not to litter, which a company like Range Resources telling people not to litter, that's like Bill Cosby telling people not to catcall. It's absolutely ridiculous. But nonetheless, you'll drive through the city, you'll see that.
Or telling
the energy
Trump
companies
not to
ain't
grope.
going anywhere.
Or telling Trump not to grope.
There you go.
Right. On that, the energy companies haven't gone anywhere. You kind of can't leave. If you're fracking an oil or a natural gas well, you can't pick that up and go somewhere else. He has no idea what he's talking about. But look, on the idea, the whole idea that they're going to help pay the national debt. To Trump's tax plan, he would essentially eliminate corporate taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Taxes paid by energy companies. How are they going to pay off the debt or help us pay off the debt if they're not paying any taxes? That makes no sense. See, any critical look into what Donald Trump says, you come up with, wait a minute. It's like he didn't even think about this whatsoever.
Right.
No
I mean, well, and I don't think he did. Like, here's the best thing that can happen from this entire circus is that if Donald Trump loses, which I want Donald Trump to lose, and the reason I want Donald Trump to lose is because the GOP cares about one thing. They care about winning elections.
Yeah.
And they care about implementing. If Donald Trump were to be our next president, he would please the GOP. I mean, the whole thing that he's too fringe for the GOP, he's not. He would please the GOP. He would give them the Supreme Court picks they wanted. He would give them the corporate tax breaks they want. He would give them all the war they want. He would please the GOP. But if he wins, that's saying to the American people and saying to the world that a platform like this is electable. This is something that's electable. Now, if he loses and loses bad, then that's saying to the GOP that, okay, this was a disaster. What can we do to make sure this never happens again? And then Hillary will, of course, inevitably disappoint, a lot of people, pretty much all progressives.
Yeah, we're expecting that.
Well, absolutely. But here's the thing. When the GOP finds out that they lost, and this is the reason why I think Hillary would be better for the progressive movement overall, because I think that Hillary, then the discussion becomes, we need to get money out of politics. And if the GOP sees something like Donald Trump, and if he loses, they're going to say, we need to make sure something like this never happens again. We need to make sure something like this in our party never, ever, ever happens again. If he wins, they're just going to forget all about this election season. But if he loses, they're going to want to make sure it never happens again. One thing to make sure that can never happen again is publicly funded elections. And if that conversation starts and Hillary got what she wants, she's in the Oval Office now, I can bet you anything that Hillary would love to have on her record book that she was in the White House when they got money out of politics, because that would be a great thing for Chelsea to have in her cap if she ever runs for office. And that's why I want to see Hillary in the White House, even though I do not like Hillary Clinton. I think she's an awful candidate. She's not as bad as Trump, true, right. And that's one big glaring thing. She's not near as bad as Trump.
Yeah.
But I think in the long run, and that's why, the Jill Stein people that are saying we'd be better off than Trump, I think that's the wrong way to look at it, because, the Democrats have followed the Republicans to the right, and that'll continue. But if they lose bad and Hillary's in the White House, then the conversation is going to be, we got to get money out of politics. And once money gets out of politics, that's going to break up the two-party system, which I think that is another thing. This election has screamed clearly, money needs to get out of the politics, and the two-party system is completely broken, and it does not reflect the people that live here.
Yeah, what we need to do, and before I've got a question for you, but I just got to say this. Before we can do that, we also have to have some structural governmental reforms too. Like, for example, fixing.
This isn't going to happen in 2 years. Just to clarify.
Absolutely.
Like, I didn't mean to, but
no,
yeah.
This is like a long-term plan. We've got to make some structural reforms to make sure that third parties can actually get the funding that they need and actually be able to win. And you've got to do something about that electoral college, the 12th Amendment. We've got a lot of structural reforms to do. But my question I wanted to ask you is, so when did you get your fusion check?
What?
From Univision.
Oh,
I'm just fucking with you. I'm fucking with you every time.
Okay.
Every time, we're part of TYT Network, so obviously we're owned by Hillary Clinton. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, all right. I mean,
I thought you were gonna get.
Whenever I've been on the road as of recent, and I mentioned TYT Network, for the longest time, it was, what do you think of Alex Jones? And I was like, I don't know. I never liked him, and I still don't. That's all I got for you. Never liked him, still don't.
Right.
That would be the question I would get a lot. No one said that TYT. I mean, this election season, I've gotten.
It's been insane.
I've been told everything from you're a sellout.
Yep.
If I dare say that Hillary Clinton, even though I don't really agree with her on a lot and I'm not thrilled about her as a candidate, if I dare say she's not the Antichrist, I'm a big sellout. And on the same note, if I don't tie it up and put a bow on it and say, oh no, she's a progressive, then I'm an idealist and I'm full of privilege because I'm supporting Jill Stein and I don't understand compromise and I'm no better than the Tea Party. So I get it all, man. I get it all. And I don't understand why you kind of can't think critically and understand both. That, we don't want to stand by our principles to the point that we risk a Trump presidency, but we are thinking about the future where we deserve better choices than this, because this doesn't represent the populace. It just doesn't. Bernie Sanders proved that.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, leave it to Ron to inject some sanity into this conversation. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.